My name is Will S. Yanko, and I'm called to plant churches in Western Canada. A little bit about myself. I was born in a Christian home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I don't think there was ever a time when I didn't know the gospel. At 4 years old, I remember feeling intense conviction for my sins during a meeting at a family camp in Montana. My parents clearly explained the gospel, and I trusted Christ to save me. A couple years later, I sensed the call to missions. I told the Lord that He could use me as a missionary. In my late teen years, my desire for following the Lord began to dim. I got a good job as an electrician, and it wasn't as though I didn't want to go to church. I did. I just didn't want to be a radical. I wanted a life of comfort. I really wanted the American dream, or I guess in my case, the Canadian dream. In the summer of 2012, I attended a revival meeting in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. After the meeting, I followed my friend back to his place. We were going way too fast for the conditions. It was pitch black and dry, and so the only thing that I could see were his taillights through the cloud of dust. He crested the hill and was out of sight for a moment, and instead of putting on his brakes, he geared down. I didn't see any brake lights. And by the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. I hit the brakes and lost control. I cried out to God to save me. My car skidded off the road and I flipped into a swamp. When everything stopped, I found myself upside down in the passenger seat of my car. I was lucky to be alive. The window was broken and the cab was filled with a foot of water. I remember crawling out of the broken window and wading through the swamp back to the shore. I looked back at my car upside down with the engine lights on and the engine still humming. It was a surreal moment. I realized I had just come very close to death. Instead of standing above my car looking into the glow of the running lights, I could have been standing before my Savior. It was a terrifying thought. Everything that I had worked for, my car, my computer, my phone, everything, it was all gone. I realized that at that moment, life was so fragile and fleeting and could be taken away in an instant. I decided I didn't want to live for that anymore. I'd like to say that everything changed overnight. It didn't. But God had my attention. The direction of my life was about to radically change.
They're hoping to increase it right now. The ball pops up. Right now, Coke is way.
In the summer of 2015, an evangelistic team, the Cola Clash, came to my church in Sherwood Park, Alberta. It was an amazing week. We saw more people saved than I had ever seen in my entire life. I suddenly realized that the gospel worked. People still do get saved. We're not doomed to hold on to the rapture with no hope for revival. That was an exciting and encouraging reality. I was all in. The leader of the team, Bobby Bosler, asked me if I wanted to travel with him sometime in the future. I said I would think about it. By this time, I was close to finishing up my trade training. I finished up that spring and was really wondering what to do next. I decided to give Bobby a call. I don't think he actually had a tour planned at that point, but he found another guy to travel with me, and we traveled as a team for 3 weeks. Those were some very transformational weeks in my life. I knew I wanted to serve God in evangelism for the rest of my life. At the end of the tour, we ended up at Baptist College of Ministry for the commencement service. It seemed to me that the campus was haunted by the presence of God. There was an atmosphere of expectation that God was on the move. If I was going to a Bible school, I wanted to go to a place where God was on the move. And so I signed up. During my years at school, my faith increased. Another tour with the Cola Clash showed me the power of specific prayer. On several occasions, we saw specific numbers of people saved in direct response to what had been prayed. My experience at school was invaluable. I believe that God is going to use me in church planting because I've already seen Him do that in the past. I go forward with expectation, knowing that faithful is He that has called me, who also will do it. The nation of Canada is dark. Initially, you might not think that because there's a lot of churches. Churches dot the cities and countryside, and there's plenty of Christian symbols. However, very few attend church. The reason? I would say it's idolatry. This may seem like a strange statement because if you were to go to Canada, you would see highways flooded with new cars. You would see comfortable homes, well-supplied restaurants, and supermarkets filled with food of every kind. You would see great wealth. You would find people who are wealthy, successful, comfortable, and obsessed with gaining more wealth, more success, and more comfort. You would find a culture that fears death and is obsessed with safety. You would find a culture of people that worship themselves and are looking to wealth and pleasure to meet their needs. This veneer of wealth and success masks a great emptiness. People seek to find peace and hope in entertainment, drug, and pornography use, and yet find that this only makes the emptiness greater. Every year, close to 300,000 Canadians pass into eternity, many not knowing Christ as their Savior. This ought not be. The people of Canada need to know not just a vague spiritual idea about God. They need to know the gospel. They need to know the peace that comes from having sins forgiven. The only hope for Canada is revival. And that's what I've been praying for, and that's what I've been preparing for. As a national church planner returning to Canada, it's my goal to play a part in bringing revival to the nation of Canada. My church planting vision consists of 4 main goals. Number 1, reach the lost through empowered gospel advance. Number 2, establish independent assemblies of believers. Number 3, disciple leaders to lead new local churches. And number 4, repeat the process in a new region. At the beginning, the goal is to cooperate with Pastor David Harness over at Victory Baptist Church at Sherwood Park, Alberta, Canada, working to establish new independent churches in the surrounding area. As the movement picks up momentum, the target areas will expand west to British Columbia and east into Saskatchewan and Manitoba. The first step is reaching the lost. This means spending time in prolonged fasting and prayer, asking the Lord to bless the effort. Everything moves forward with prayer. This prayer must be accompanied by action. This means making connections in the community, spending time in personal outreach, planning and executing area-wide meetings, and ultimately seeing souls trust Christ for salvation. The second part of this vision is establishing churches. I believe that churches are made up of people and not buildings. Once souls are saved, they need to be established in the faith. This means living life with the newly saved and building authentic and powerful relationships by meeting in homes, cafes, and in other locations. New believers must be taught to observe all things Christ has commanded them. Although establishing a permanent meeting place is priority, it's peripheral when compared to establishing believers in their newfound faith. The third part of this vision is discipling leaders. God is the one who establishes churches. He brings His body together. He raises up leaders within the body. As a church planter and a disciple maker, it's my job to recognize these spiritual gifts within the newly formed body and train up leaders to lead the flock so that I'm able to move on to a new region. The final part of this vision is repeating the process in a new region. Throughout the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul was always on the move, establishing new churches in new regions. This is the New Testament model. As God empowers the movement, a church planting movement will be established in Western Canada. I believe that this mission is what God has placed me on earth to do. Canada must be reached with the life-giving message of the gospel. Would you prayerfully consider partnering with me in prayer and in financial support as I seek to make this vision a reality? Thank you for listening, and God bless.